Let's switch gears and go ahead and talk about the Wolverines. I laid out 5 takes from the season opener against Colorado State, and we asked the question, which I answered for myself, are these reactions or overreactions? I'm going to go through the same 5 with you and get your take. All right, so number 1, J.J. McCarthy should be the starting quarterback. Reaction or overreaction?
We have overanalyzed this forever. I maybe gotten to the point where I just want this to blow up in Harbaugh's face and this to become a Cardell Jones, J.T. Barrett debacle, and hope that
what a debacle that was. Ohio State went 12-1, finished in the top 5, and only lost a game because Urban Meyer forgot to give the damn ball to Ezekiel Elliott in a driving rainstorm for 2 hours. I hope we have that debacle. In fact, I'm freaking praying for it. I'll take that debacle right now. You guys beat the shit out of us in that season too, as I recall. So yes, I will take your debacle and see you and raise you and accept it. Yes, bring me your debacles, please. Yes.
There was a lot of ugly, like 20-13 wins over Northern Illinois in that season. It was a debacle on its own level. Yes, when they got focused at the end of the season, they were still a reckon to be dealt with. But yeah, if we take this performance just on its own, Cade McNamara did not look like a great quarterback, but we know who he is. I'm not going to overreact to missing some throws. He had a lot of throws in this game in which I couldn't quite determine, did he miss that throw, or was he kind of like half throwing it out of bounds and half determining, well, if I give my guy like this 1% chance of, like, I couldn't quite weigh whether he was being ultra conservative or he was just trying to give his guys some level of chance to catch the ball, because there were a lot of those throwaways for him. He made one really bad look in the red zone that should have been picked off. It was initially called an interception. He missed the guy by a mile. But I'm not too concerned with Cade McNamara. I just can't imagine that these games are really going to tell Jim Harbaugh much about these quarterbacks that he doesn't already know. J.J. McCarthy has a more talent, higher ceiling, all those sorts of things. Can he run the offense? We get a look at it this week. I'm going to be interested to see whether they give McNamara the reps that they gave McCarthy. He's not the changeup guy. We've talked about this many times, that if he loses the job, he's not, he's simply a backup quarterback. He's not the guy JJ is to come in and give the defense a different look and a different skill set. So are they going to give Cade the reps that they gave JJ going 4 for 4 this week that they gave JJ in week 1?
All right. Number 2, JJ McCarthy should at least be the red zone quarterback. And if you go back to last year, one of the reasons why we had the Lou Groza award-winning kicker, I mean, he's a hell of a kicker, okay? But he got a lot of opportunities, sub 45 yards, because not until the end of the year were we actually a great red zone offense at converting touchdown or red zone opportunities into touchdowns. That's a misnomer about last year's team. Michigan actually had more 40 and 50-plus yard touchdown plays than any team in college football last year. They were not great until the end of the season in converting red zone opportunities into touchdowns, and had to kick a lot of field goals in places like Nebraska and some of those games, right? And you saw this again against Colorado State. That is not Cade's game. He doesn't have the arm for throwing into tight windows. He's not a running threat, so you've got numbers in the box. So at the very least, reaction or overreaction, JJ should be the red zone quarterback.
There's maybe Harbaugh is going to fall right into the pit that I'm hoping that they fall into. I don't like that whole, we've got a quarterback who's going to remove it from the 25-yard line all the way into the red zone, and we're going to remove him from the game. Might as well go to the Steve Spurrier approach of, shuttling in quarterbacks, or Tom Landry did that with Staubach and Morton at one point way back.
Steve Spurrier beat Florida State when they were like number 2 in the country one year doing that, and finished in the top 10. You keep giving me these examples of ridiculous things that worked, brother. These things worked.
Well, Tom Landry figured out halfway through the season it didn't work, and then he settled on Staubach and they won the Super Bowl. But yes, they worked because they had great talent, and Michigan's certainly in that category to a certain extent. I just don't, in a tactical way, I can't give a tactical argument as to why JJ would not be the better threat in the red zone. But isn't he the better threat at the 50, at the 40, at the everywhere on the field?
See, that's the thing about this that people don't understand, is even if Harbaugh had never, let's do an exercise, Mark. Let's pretend Harbaugh had never opened his mouth about this being an open competition and just announced Cade as the starter and JJ will play just like we saw last year. And let's just pretend that's all, and which is what we anticipated would happen. And let's pretend that happened and we saw the exact game. Now, some people are going to say, well, Harbaugh messed with Cade mentally by yanking his chain here at the end, except 9 out of 18 for 160 yards. If you watched last year, that's a pretty Cade McNamara passing line, actually. All right, 1 touchdown, no picks. That's, except for against Michigan State's pretty awful secondary, that's pretty much what he did against everybody else, okay? So let's pretend that Harbaugh never opened the door when we had the exact same game we just saw. Mark, what's the number one thing we're talking about out of that game?
We're talking about Cade McNamara, not...
yeah, same thing. We're having the same conversation. We're having the exact same conversation. It's obvious it's a different offense when JJ's in the game. He, at the very least, tell him to just dump the ball off like Cade does. But then now you've got a running threat on top of it, so it's not just a bluff zone read every time where the opponent's got numbers in the box. We would be having the same conversation whether Jim opened up the competition or not, because it's obvious to everybody that one guy is a superior prospect to the other. That's why they're doing this. It's obvious to them too. They're lengthening the runway so that there's more room for J.J. McCarthy to land the plane. This is pretty obvious what is going on here. Okay, and I think they intended him to be the starting quarterback coming out of the Orange Bowl. He had to rest his shoulder all of spring, so now he's not there really full-time the entire spring. This is being done so that the guy that won't go 9 of 18 for $160 can be the quarterback. That's pretty obvious.
Well, then we've got our answer, and that's the right answer. It's they have a player in J.J. McCarthy who's not just a better player in terms of arm strength and speed and ability athletically, but he's played in enough games and shown it. And no, he's not had the burden of the offense from play one to play conclusion of the game. But other than that, he has played big opponents in meaningful spots in close games. So time to cut loose and let it go. And the only thing that's going to make this an issue is if somehow J.J. McCarthy comes out this week and goes 9 for 21 and throws 2 picks.
Yes. All right, let's do these final 3 in more rapid-fire fashion. The defense will be even better than last season. Reaction or overreaction? Harbaugh was hinting at that during camp. All right, so is that reaction or overreaction? What do you think?
The defense at this point is not better than last year. They played Colorado State. They had a tremendous defensive effort. Every play that I saw, they were all over the quarterback. So I get that. There should be optimism. It's still a great group, and it might collectively be a better defense. We shall see, but I'm still missing those 3 to 4 stars.
Okay, number 4, we missed Hassan Haskins' power running, especially in the red zone. Reaction or overreaction? Then this is something that you would substitute with JJ in the lineup, as it becomes, you kind of alleviate that thing. If you do think that's a problem, him in the lineup kind of alleviates it because now you've got numbers in the box. But what is your take?
Well, this is kind of the football that's not real sexy, that people don't talk about, that fans don't focus on, but could be key against better teams, better defenses there. And Hassan Haskins has been missed, will be missed, doesn't seem to be completely replaced by either one of those 2 players, but it is it's a small portion of the offense in the red zone, running game, 1 yard, 2 yards, but it could be crucial at some point in the season.
By the way, from 2018 to 2021, the 2 running backs in college football that gained the most yards after contact, Najee Harris is number 1, Hassan Haskins is number 2. So there you go. Finally, none of this matters at all because it was only Colorado State. Reaction or overreaction?
That is generally reaction. However, even Colorado State has pockets of players that will move on to the NFL. Well, they've got 1 or 2 guys on the roster move on to the NFL, or 1 or 2 per class that will play in the NFL at some point. And they got a collection of players that in pockets you can identify as, okay, these are matchups that we're not hitting on because Colorado State is capable players that can match Michigan, but there's only a handful of them. So it's generally reaction, makes sense. We need to see Michigan play a team that's in the top 50 in the nation.
Good stuff, my friend. We'll talk to you again soon. All right, take care.
Thanks, Steve.
You bet.
Appreciate it.